We're joined now by Stefano Lucatello, who's an international criminal lawyer. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So the prosecution can now go to the Supreme Court of Appeal and begin the process of trying to overturn the verdict of culpable homicide.
That's right. It can only be done on points of law. What they're saying is, the prosecution is saying that the judge erred in law, not in fact, but in law, and didn't apply the law correctly, and as such, they wish to overturn the sentence.
It's all down to this term that we're all getting very familiar with, which is dolus eventualis. The fact that he shot 4 black talon bullets through a locked door, and whether or not he meant to kill.
Not knowing what was behind the door.
Not knowing what was behind the door.
That's right.
Thinking it was an intruder. Now, what would your interpretation of that be?
Well,
were you the judge?
You have to apply the law, whether you're a sensational, fantastic athlete like Oscar, or whether you're just Joe Bloggs, the man in the streets. That's the point we have to start from. The point is that the law must apply to everyone in the same way. So whether you're high profile or you're not high profile, that's the point to start with. So unfortunately, trial by television is all too common nowadays, and we must avoid that. We must separate that as lawyers. If there is enough evidence to try a person, then that person must be tried. Having been tried, if there is no reasonable grounds for a judge to come to a proper decision, as in the cases that have been heard recently, this is why the Justice Minister is now getting very, very upset about 3 high-profile cases that have not gone the way that they thought it would go. They must look at it, and it's the same in any other case. If the evidence is there, it must be used. If the evidence is not there, then a person can't be tried and can't be found guilty, whatever the offence is.
So a new set of senior judges will now critically examine the merits of that case and maybe reach a different conclusion. How might that appeal, or this appeal, affect the sentence of 5 years? I mean, if the verdict of culpable homicide is overturned and the Supreme Court decided it was murder,
yes,
would the sentence then be automatically reviewed?
It could be automatically reviewed. The prosecution are hoping that it will go to a minimum of 15 years, which is for full murder. And then they will say that he should stay in longer or shorter, whatever. He will have served part of his sentence, so of course anything he's served will go towards the diminution or the reduction in that sentence. But they are hoping that it will go from culpable homicide, which is a lesser offence, to a greater offence, the full offence of murder.
Now, what they will be, these 5 judges will be looking at, will be the court reports. Nothing else, no new evidence?
No. They will only review, not the facts, but they will review how the law was applied and interpreted under South African law. So if the judge applied or misapplied or misdirected in any way, shape or form, then they will review that. They may not necessarily change the verdict. They may not necessarily increase the sentence. They may just say, had the judge directed in another way, this would not have affected the end outcome, so we will not do anything. They have the power to increase the sentence, they have the power to decrease the sentence. Of course, the prosecution is hoping that it will increase the sentence and that he'll stay in jail for far longer than what he's being given at the moment.
Is there concern in South Africa that because the court imposed the shortest possible sentence, this could set a dangerously low precedent for future similar cases?
If these people had not been high-profile people, I dare say that we would not be sat here discussing the matter today. I think it's only because it's Oscar Pistorius. It's because it was the captain of the South African football team, and it's because we have people in the limelight that such stories arise. It's food for television. It's trial by television. We must avoid this at all costs in any jurisdiction, whether it's Nigeria, South Africa, United Kingdom, anywhere. We must avoid it. As a lawyer, we have to be true. And the judge said, in the recent case with Dewani, that she had applied the rules of law and had given an oath to apply those rules of evidence and those rules of law in the manner she had been told to do and should do. And she couldn't do anything else other than that. The evidence wasn't there. The evidence wasn't strong. She threw the case out. Why? Because the evidence wasn't there, whether he was Oscar Pistorius, whether he was Dewani, whether it was me or anybody else. And the rules of law must apply. And the evidence was not there for her to convict this man, Dewani, of what he had been inculpated by the prosecution.
Stefano Lucatello, thanks very much indeed for joining us. To the business news now with our economics and business editor, Michael Wilson.
Thank you very much indeed. The OPEC oil cartel no longer exists in any meaningful sense, and crude prices will slump to $50 a barrel over the coming months as market forces shake out the weaker producers. That is according to an influential report from Bank of America. Revolutionary changes sweeping the world's energy industry will drive down the price of liquefied natural gas, creating a considerable glut and a much cheaper source for Europe's gas needs. Nikki Omer reports on the tectonic shifts in power in both energy and politics that this would imply.
This is the meeting which may have changed everything in the world's energy markets. Last month in Vienna, members of OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, agreed to maintain output.
The conference decided to maintain the production level of 30 million barrels a day, as was agreed in December 2011.
This in the face of a world oil surplus, so guaranteeing the price of a barrel will fall. It also put OPEC oil-producing countries in even more direct competition with shale oil producers, including the US. Crude has plummeted 40% since an annual high hit in June. And oil prices are now at the lowest since 2009, as global demand fails to keep pace with surging US output. Now, Bank of America's commodity chief Francisco Blanch says OPEC is what he called effectively dissolved after it failed to stabilise prices. He added the consequences are profound and long-lasting. Blanch also predicts the free market will now set the global cost of oil, leading to a new era of wild price swings. Disorderly trading ahead will benefit only the Mideast petro-states with the deepest pockets, notably Saudi Arabia. Nikki Omer, Arise News.
South Africa shares have plunged over 2%, the biggest one-day drop in a year as falling oil and commodity prices depressed any sentiment. However, the country's biggest cement maker, PCC, has received a merger proposal from its unlisted rival, Afrisam Group. If the proposal is accepted, the deal would create a firm big enough to dominate the building materials market in Africa's most advanced economy. PVC shares seesawed after the announcement. Shares in the Nigerian part of British soap and shampoo maker PZ Cussons have shed almost a tenth of their value after the company reported a drop in half-year profits, citing the devaluation of the naira. The rand firmed against the dollar, bouncing back from six-year lows, but weakened again after South Africa's headline consumer inflation slowed in line with forecasts. The naira was up against the dollar after state oil company NNPC sold around $200 million to commercial lenders, which boosted liquidity on the interbank market. Shilling dropped to a three-year low. Gold rose, trading to a 7-week peak, with weakness in the dollar and global equities prompting investors to seek safety in it. Copper slipped from a 2-week highs on worries of weak global growth. Oil went down to $65 a barrel after Bank of America made those disparaging comments about OPEC.
But I suppose OPEC people are going to be saying, well, we acknowledge the fact that we no longer exist.
Well, you know, I mean, the bottom line is, look, a cartel is supposed to keep prices up and stifle competition. OPEC's doing none of those things at the moment. There is clearly war between its members, the weaker ones and the stronger ones, the ones with the deepest reserves, Saudi Arabia, and they could see the price go down to, you know, $30 a barrel and they'd be fine. And I mean, what we're seeing is a great change in something which people had expected to maintain a sort of certain kind of price.
It was always there. It was like the sun came up.
We are in the we are in the unknown, and I think it's really pleasing that nothing ever turns out as you imagine it's going to do. You know, all the arguments about peak oil no longer really relevant. I mean, obviously it's a finite source, but I think it's got a lot further to go. And I think the most crucial thing is that nobody really is willing to say how low the price of oil has to go in for those shale oil producers in the United States to find it not worthwhile. Nobody knows. I mean, it ranges from, you know, $40 to $60 a barrel. So all bets are off.
Something of a lame duck presidency for the Nigerian sort of oil minister who's just taken over.
Well, I think that, you know, that what has to happen there is much more of a diversity in what happens. I mean, Nigeria does have those reserves, and it has incredible reserves, so it's still going to make money. But I think, you know, before the price of oil went down, I mean, you and I were talking about the necessity, as most economists were, about the economy there having to diversify whatever the price of oil is.
And do you think that it is all about American shale, or is it becoming we're much more efficient with using the oil we've got? Was it a combination of both?
How long have you got?
Oh, OK.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, what's happening is there is a glut. The demand from China is down, and the demand of oil is in any case down because of weakening economies. And so and also as soon as the price starts to go down, then people start to think, oh yes, well maybe it's worthwhile doing something in terms of alternative sources of energy. So it all meshes together, but at the moment on the way down.
OK, thanks very much indeed.
You're watching Arise News Hour. A Palestinian minister has died after a confrontation with Israeli troops at a protest in the West Bank. Several witnesses said the minister was hit and shoved by soldiers. Palestinian officials said it was murder and it was time Israel was held to account. Arise News' Alice Lugston has this report.
A scuffle between Palestinians and Israeli soldiers in the West Bank had deadly consequences today. Israeli forces stopped a group of about 100 Palestinians in the village of Termasaya, near the city of Ramallah. Among them, this man, Zayed Abu An, a Palestinian minister and leader of the group, which he says had only peaceful intentions.
We came to our Palestinian land to plant olive trees, and they're attacking us from the first moment. Nobody threw a stone and nobody attacked back. And this is the terrorist occupation army practicing suppression and terrorism against the Palestinian people.
Moments later, Abu An